All right, final home stretch for drafting. The big board will likely be full the next time we fire up a best ball breakfast. We'll cross that bridge when it comes. But today we have drafts to complete. We are still firing in the big board where there is $200,000 up top. We also have a special treat for the second draft. My buddy, ship chasing co-host Ben Gretch is going to swing by to help us draft that one. So stay tuned. Some nonstop drafts here for the next couple hours on the Pete Overzet live stream channel. Let's do it. My slow draft rooms are so much different than my streamed drafts.
Does no one realize Underdog's half-point PPR? Idiots!
Damn, bro. You know ball. Hope you guys packed your bags. I packed my bags. No, I mean, I literally packed my bags.
Dude, Star Method's legit. Only way to max out every contest in a plus EV way.
Week 17, you still gotta get there, bro.
We have a finite sample. We only have so much samples. Is it negative EV to stream all your drafts? We just don't know. All right, GMs all around. How are we doing here? It is the home stretch. We got some AUs, some GMs. Is BBM here yet? We're getting so close. It is wild. I don't know the exact date, but we know it will likely be very shortly after the NFL draft completes. Last year, that was on the Saturday night of the NFL draft. Who knows if it's Saturday, if it's Sunday, but I think we can expect that we are now less than 2 weeks away from Best Ball Mania dropping, which is nuts. This is truly the calm before the storm. We, of course, have the NFL draft kicking off next Thursday, then BBM, and then we are fully off to the races in hot best ball summer here. They keep shrinking UFL guys, win marketing, win China. I feel bad. I haven't been actually keeping tabs on how those contests have been going. I know my buddies, Cody Main, Justin Freeman, so many people doing great work around the UFL. I just don't have time for it. It's one of those things. It was on the show I did with Spags over the weekend. I forget which one it was, the Boozy live stream over on Splash Play, which you guys should check out, or if it was the DFS After Dark we did over here. But he asked me, like, what is one of the biggest shifts for you as far as like what you're able to do with having a kid? And one of the things I mentioned was getting to play those random DFS sports. Like, it was fun to throw myself into UFL, throw myself into UFC, DFS on a random Saturday night. And now there's just not time for those things. But I know those guys are doing awesome work over there, crushing the UFL street. So hopefully it stays alive. It's a nice, fun product to have, and bridge us between these lull periods. But man, I don't feel lull periods when it comes to best ball right now. We've been making videos. You guys have been drafting a ton of teams. We have this like robust market to analyze constantly. And that makes it very fun in a way where I don't catch myself looking over my shoulder at hot other young sports to cover. Best ball is all we need. I'm in a monogamous relationship with best ball fantasy football. Although I will say the NBA playoffs are now set, and I love playoff best ball regardless of the sport. So I will be diving into some NBA playoff best ball drafts this week on The Dance. We did a show last week on The Club with Mike Zakarian talking some strategy. I know the Badge Bros did a show with Chipsy the other day talking playoff best ball strategy. So if you guys are into that, check it out. We also have a thread within the Badge Bros channel within the Deposit Kingdom Discord. So if you want to venture into some other playoff best ball, I highly recommend it. There are a lot of parallels to just understanding team level stacking and correlation, where you can pick it up fairly quickly if you like the NFL version and want to dabble in the NBA. Yeah, Tyler, appreciate that. The Spags doubleheader was a blast. That was a very fun show. We had a premise for the show on Splash Play where Spags and I were supposed to each write down on a note card who we wanted to draft. And then if we weren't in agreement, we would have to take a drink. That was going to be the premise of the drinking game. Well, two things. One, Spags missed my memo that I said we were going to write these down, and didn't bring note cards. So I was the only one writing them down. And then instead of trying to meet in the middle and make the best pick for the team, Spag just kept saying who he wanted to pick. And so the game ended up becoming me trying to guess who Spags wanted to take. And he ended up, bullying me into the team he wanted to draft. I think I got one pick through on him, maybe two. He took AD Mitchell, who I wanted to take. I took Gus Edwards, I think, for me. But yes, a very fun time reuniting with Chris Spags, which, by the way, Spags does daily streams over on Splash Play. Make sure to check those out if you are starved for more best ball content. He does a great job drafting and talking through his thoughts. And then, yeah, we hopped over to Best Ball After Dark, which I've been doing on the weekends. Those are available exclusively for YouTube members. I made that one. I had forgot to set the paywall up for that and had to set it up at the last minute. If you are a YouTube member anywhere on the channel, you have access to that video. However, in general, I try to set them as for Best Ball Value Hounds. So if you become the YouTube member, do the Best Ball Value Hounds. That will get you access to all of the videos, both the archives. I've now been doing these Best Ball After Darks that morph into DFS After Dark in the season, but for almost a year now, I want to say. So there's like 40 plus videos in those archives. And I'll tease for this weekend. I'm doing the show on Friday night. I've been meaning to do a show with him forever. Fareed Shahid, the winner of Best Ball Mania 4. I know he made the rounds immediately after winning BBM, did the Swolecast, did Legendary Upside, did Liam's Pod. But I've been waiting for my chance to talk to Fareed, see how this has been for him in the aftermath of winning his $3 million top prize. So you guys can get access to that show with Fareed on Friday. I'll kind of see where his mindset has been this offseason, how much he's enjoying being the champ, and then where his head's at as far as BBM 5 strategy. So that show, I believe, will be Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern with Fareed. Looking forward to that. Let's see here. I believe it was last show, I forgot to do a coffee pour, and that really set me back. It set the show back. It set the audience back, and I want to make sure that I don't mess that up again. So let's get a coffee pour here. All right. I also did a little multitasking while coffee pouring, and we did hop into our first draft here. We drew the 1-8. Let me get my screen up here, and then we will be off to the races with a little draft here. I actually tried to get in a cardio club little walking draft this morning. I took April out for a walk, and the draft didn't fill. I was like 35 minutes. It was a pretty early morning walk. I think I took off at like 6:45, and the lobby just was not filling. And so I did have to bail on that. So I didn't get to sneak in an extra draft this morning, but we'll get a couple here today, of course, with Ben Gretch swinging by for the second one. Drafted. What did I do? Yeah, I got a new piece of cardio equipment. I finally got an assault bike. I'd been wanting one of those for a while to kind of complement, having two options, whether the rower or the assault bike for doing some cardio club drafts. So I did my first cardio club draft on the assault bike over the weekend, which was fun. And I'm loving that. Excited to do that a bunch this summer. And I had mentioned last week that I was going to be talking with the people at Underdog about the Underdog Cardio Club plans for 2024. We got some ideas in the hopper. We'll be having an announcement about that, I believe, in the next couple of weeks. I think that announcement will come shortly after BBM is launched. But yeah, some exciting things in the works for those of you who love doing drafts while cardio. And yeah, I believe this will be year 3 of Underdog Cardio Club. Let's see here. Rob, hi PD, man. I haven't gotten a PD since high school. That's normally my go-to when people say, do you prefer Pete or Peter? And I just say anything but PD, because that's what people called me in high school. I think when you're a Peter and then you're really short, as I was in high school, the PD just comes naturally as almost a pejorative nickname there. We're going to grab Amon-Ra St. Brown with the 1-8. I definitely prefer the first 7 players who went off the board here, but I have no problem taking Amon-Ra. I feel like if I had to create my own tiers, I almost feel like Amon-Ra would be slightly in his own tier. Maybe with Breece Hall, but I think I prefer Breece Hall in his own tier there. But then Amon-Ra kind of Justin Jefferson, I still include with these other elite guys. And then I do have Amon-Ra ahead of Puka. But yeah, it's hard to like poke holes in the Amon-Ra St. Brown thesis. I guess the hole would be that they add another deep threat, in the wake of losing Josh Reynolds, and they use a day 2 pick, a round 2 pick on another wide receiver who ends up being good, who can actually earn targets, unlike Jameson Williams. Sorry to Jameson for catching some strays this early into best ball breakfast. But yeah, but even then it's like Amon-Ra is going to do Amon-Ra St. Brown things. They already added like one of the best target earners at tight end in the league in Sam Laporta. And that was the perfect use case of the rising tide lifting all boats as far as what that meant for just the overall offense and how much the offense would succeed with more talent there. So that's a long way of saying I am not really concerned about Amon-Ra St. Brown this year. I feel like he's going to have a good year. Jahmyr Gibbs goes, so we can't do any fun, Lion stacks quite yet. Brandon Ayuk at the top of these ranks I have in right now. I do have the updated LegUp ranks in. He goes. We should talk a little bit about Brandon Ayuk. He was in the news and then not in the news over the weekend. Let's see. What are we going to do here? Yeah, we can grab a running back here. You know what? This is one of the things I said after doing the rankings exercise, which I do want to mention that video. I am selecting Jonathan Taylor here. And this is the value of making these videos for me, is because it helps inform my decisions and portfolio as I'm drafting in these contests. But I did, over on the Deposit Kingdom YouTube channel, I compared 3 sets of rankings that I think are the biggest market movers within the underdog big board space right now. That would, of course, be ETR's rankings. It would be Legendary Upsides, Pat and Co's, and then Sean Siegel's at RotoViz. And I wanted to figure out who was higher than consensus than others. Did they collectively differ from ADP in certain spots? And then I was able to kind of deduce who are the most polarizing players, who are the players they are recommending as screaming values, and the market hasn't caught up, or on the inverse, who are the guys that are big fades because they're way below market. But anyways, one of the polarizing players, here's a spoiler from the video, is Jonathan Taylor. And it's an interesting thing because both ETR and Legendary Upsides ranks on Jonathan Taylor are as essentially, I think it's like a mid-third round value. They had rankings around 30, 31 on him, but Sean Siegel remains very bullish on Jonathan Taylor's ability to give us a Legendary Upside season at running back. He has him, I believe, 14th in his ranks. And I had not selected any Jonathan Taylor until this very moment, partly because of being a little spooked by, just kind of the variables with that offense. The fact that he didn't look as explosive and efficient when he did come back down the stretch last year, even though he wrestled that workload back from Zach Moss, which obviously was good to see. It still wasn't the old explosive Jonathan Taylor, but enough people, Gretch, who is going to be coming on in a little bit, have gotten me a little bit more excited about Jonathan Taylor. This seemed like a good spot to mix him in. Amon-Ra, Jonathan Taylor start. Sam Laporta doesn't come back to us. He goes at pick 30, so we will miss out on that. And we'll likely be grabbing a wide receiver here. Don't have a ton of Mike Evans. Mike Evans, ADP at 27, falls to 32 here. Let's go ahead and grab Mike Evans. This earlier in the big board season, you used to be able to get Malik Neighbors and Jalen Waddle here all the time. Like pick 31, 32, that was Jalen Waddle, Malik Neighbors territory. Now those guys are going much earlier. I've been seeing some really aggressive prices on Malik Neighbors. He went 21 in this draft. I do think like him closing the gap on Marvin Harrison isn't insane for redraft purposes. But it is just kind of interesting to note that Malik Neighbors has continued to be a big riser. And so now I don't mind like mixing it. Like I was drafting a bunch of Neighbors around here. And now if he's going to go in the second round, well, now I'll build up some exposure to guys like Mike Evans, who I previously wasn't getting. We got JGFC here out of the 12 hole. Marvin Harrison, Drake London turn there from him. Yeah, back to the assault bike. Does that beat the shit out of you if you don't pedal hard fast enough? It's like a rowing machine where the resistance is directly proportional to your effort. So the harder you go, the harder it gets. We got Yosh in the chat. Appreciate the lulls with Ship My Money. I've been thinking about getting back into baseball DFS. If only I could play on UD. Yeah, that was a fun show with Ship My Money. If you guys don't watch lulls regularly, we talked to him the other day. So this is one of the things I've been trying to do of like really thinking through how do I want to build up my portfolio before the contest closes. I was a buyer on Tank Dell in the 3rd round, and I very much am going to be a buyer on Tank Dell at 4-5. I want to say over my past like 5 or 6 drafts, I have been selecting Tank Dell every single time if he's there when I pick in the 4th round. I do like Lamar Jackson. That would have been a perfectly fine pick, but I want to build up a big Tank Dell position. I still think he's the wide receiver you want in Houston. That's my take. I know the market disagrees. You know, even before Stephon Diggs, they were drafting Nico Collins. But to me, Tank Dell is the best wide receiver there. And if I'm going to be able to get him at pick 41 in the 4th round, I am going to do that every day of the week. For those of you who are on Rashee Rice watch, he went at pick 37 to JGFC. So not a ton of discount there relative to the news. I know the affidavit late this weekend. There were some more details surrounding his crash, but I haven't heard any updates on the legal front. It's all just speculation right now. I've had an Echo bike for a few years. Couldn't imagine drafting while riding it though. Oh, really? Yeah, I got the phone holder. It's absolutely perfect. The phone holder just sits right underneath. Crank, 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 make your pick, back to work. It's my second preferred cardio club device. I think number 1, the pinnacle is like an industry grade Stairmaster, like one of those big beefy ones that are at your big box gyms. Those are harder to find now. I could not find one for a residential purchase. Second for me, assault bike. 3rd would be rowing machine. 4 would be treadmill, but I just don't like treadmill. I mean, treadmill's fine for Underdog Cardio Club purposes, I guess how it works. I just do not like the treadmill. Ooh, J-Mike, brief commentary on the new Creamy fascination. Yes, in this week's P.O. Box newsletter, my personal newsletter, you guys can subscribe for free to that. I wrote about the Creamy, my new ice cream making device that I love. And yeah, I said most of what I have to say about it in the newsletter. So you can check that out. But let me make my pick and then I can talk a little bit more about healthy ice cream. Another, thinking about building up positions similar to Tank Dell, like I think Pat Perine, who congratulations on just becoming a dad, Vivian, earlier last week, he would be very upset at me if I did not select Mark Andrews at pick 56. Mark Andrews, the same guy who was going in the middle of the 2nd round or at the 2-3 turn last year with Lamar Jackson, you can now get him at pick 56. So yeah, I'm loving this team so far. Jonathan Taylor at running back. We got 3 wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, and Tank Dell, and then tight end Mark Andrews holding it down for us. We have seen in this draft something I did fully expect to happen, which was the CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes flippening. I'm not sure if this has been happening in every draft, but CJ Stroud here at 49 goes to that Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs double tap at the 2-3 turn. That was another thing I predicted on the Badge Bros show right after this news had dropped. I said that is going to be very popular, at least for the big board, probably for Best Ball Mania. You double tap 2 Houston wide receivers, and then you take CJ Stroud at the 4-5 turn. The way you make it unique, though, is you actually take the best of the 3 Houston wide receivers, Tank Dell with one of Nico Collins, Steph Diggs, and then do CJ Stroud. Because this is the chalk double stack. The chalk is Nico, Diggs, Stroud. Throw in Tank there, who now has an ADP on the opposite side of the board. And not only are you getting the best Texans wide receiver, but you're actually getting a unique stack as well. Okay, we are about to pick here. This is going to be a running back pick for me here. I believe it was last time I took Joe Mixon. Chipsy just had like a mental breakdown in the chat. So everyone pray for Chipsy as I click Joe Mixon at pick 65 here. 8 picks past ADP. But yeah, I mean, Joe Mixon if you were to allow me to make a bet on his closing line value or where his ADP resides, come August in Best Ball Mania, I would bet every cent that I have that it's higher than pick 65, and probably much higher than that. I do really think he's destined to be a 4th round pick. So getting him here in the mid 6th feels like the time to get your Joe Mixon, because that I know this is how it's going to be for me. Like, Joe Mixon is the kind of guy that I'm going to need to select early and often, because I am not going to want to take him in the 4th round. I'm not going to want to take Joe Mixon over Tank Dell and Keenan Allen and T. Higgins and Zay Flowers. So if I'm going to have any Joe Mixon in my portfolio, it's going to be when he's a 6th round pick and not when he's a 4th round pick. But J. Mike, back to the creamy stuff. Yeah, I wrote it up. It's basically just a vehicle for getting to make not only healthy ice cream, where you can kind of cater the exact base of protein that you put in it. You can also cater the mix-ins if you want to do healthy mix-ins. If you want to just have fun and toss Oreos and Reese's in there, you can do that. But then it's also, you're getting the fresh texture that you can't get in a store-bought pint of ice cream, because you're literally whipping it up and spinning it and essentially getting a fresh scoop of ice cream, as if you're getting it, straight from an ice cream shop or whatever after they just made it. So those are the selling points for me. I am loving it every single night, having a little bit of my creamy dessert. If you're interested in it, I wrote my recipe, all of the stuff I use, the instructions, all the little hacks. That's in the P.O. Box newsletter. I'll drop a link to that in the chat. This is a free newsletter I do each week. I don't write about ice cream every week. I will offer that disclaimer right now. Sometimes I write about best ball. Sometimes I write about fitness stuff. Sometimes I write about ice cream. Only one time have I written about ice cream. All right. We got some quarterbacks coming off the board. Holy cow. Am I in a quarterback avalanche? What is going on here? We had Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, and Jordan Love all just come off the board in the 7th round. And now we are on the clock. Let's see here. I think we already have Mike Evans. I don't have a ton of Godwin. He's 5 picks past ADP. I love leaning into these big team level bets in these early drafts. So let's go ahead and stack up Chris Godwin with Mike Evans. And because these quarterbacks are going so early, we're not able to get Stroud with Tank. Obviously, we're not able to get Lamar with Mark Andrews, but we still have some avenues for late stacks. Obviously Baker with our Tampa Bay double, obviously Goff with Amon-Ra, but we're just going to have to keep an eye on these quarterback prices, because this little run here is slightly unusual relative to those ADPs. So yeah, all these guys went in the early 70s. Let's go look at it. Dak has an ADP of 80. Jordan Love has an ADP of 82. Kyler has an ADP of 85. So all of these guys just randomly went around ahead of their ADP. So that's just a unique wrinkle to this draft that we're going to have to pay attention to. Appreciate that, J. Mike. I'm also regularly writing the Fantasy Life newsletter. That dropped today. I wrote about the rookie running back class, partly because I got jazzed up because Dwayne just launched his new running back supermodel. So he, of course, has the wide receiver supermodel. We talked about that previously. He has the tight end supermodel, and now just dropped the running back supermodel. And I think an article I'm going to do for Fantasy Life this week is comparing his supermodel to Underdog ADP and kind of seeing where the biggest discrepancies are there. I think that could be a fun exercise. All right, this feels like a running back pick. I'm not much of a Curtis Samuel at 100, bro. We could do Xavier Worthy, but I do that so often. I think this is a chance to get one of these running backs. I'm trying to think if there's any other considerations here. Najee, James Conner. I do not take a lot of DeAndre Swift. I'll do James Conner. I flipped it to James Conner at the last second. I've been taking, oddly, a lot of I feel like the guys I lean on the most here are like David Montgomery, Najee, obviously Jaylen Warren, although did he go before Najee in this one? Yeah, he did. Yeah, JGFC taking Jalen Warren ahead of Najee. That shouldn't be a surprise. But I do kind of want to randomize some of these guys who I consider to be similar archetypes. I feel like the Najee archetype isn't that different from what you're getting from James Conner, and getting a 12 pick ADP value here as well as the tiebreaker. James Conner ADP of 77. I take him at 89 here. So the team through 8 rounds, still no quarterback. Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, and James Conner at running back. Wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, Tank Dell, Chris Godwin at wide receiver. Tight end, Mark Andrews. And the people are getting restless, wondering, where are all these rookies? Peter, I come to this stream to see you draft rookies, and yet you have not drafted a single one. Sorry, I am way behind on the chat. I have it like on my scroll right now, and you guys are talking about neighbors, and I realize that's from like 3 rounds ago. I'm trying to catch up here. Thank you, Tyler. Please like, or Pete may run out of his precious cream. Yes, every single like and super chat is what allows me to buy more milk, protein powder, and sugar-free pudding mix to make my ice cream. Tyler's super chat here just paid for another pack of sugar-free vanilla pudding mix. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Rick mentioned this. You know what? I have actually not seen this source report, but I've now heard multiple people mention it. I wonder if Brooks is going to move up boards with the will be ready for week 1 news, but that's maybe his agent being a good agent. I think both of those thoughts are smart ones to have. Yes, people will react to that report because that is what underdog drafters do. They react to news, but it's also fair being skeptical of an agent trying to hype up his client before the NFL draft, where that placement in the NFL draft dictates how much money that agent makes. I think that is a fair source of skepticism there as well. Let's see what we're going to do here in round 9. Xavier Worthy goes at 98. Romeo Dobbs goes at 102. AD Mitchell went at 85 to JGFC. Kind of brutal having JGFC on the wrap here. None of the fun players are going to come back. But what I'm going to do is get another guy that I talked about in the new video on the Deposit Kingdom about looking at the 3 sets of rankings. And Tyler Lockett, who I just selected at 104, was one of the screaming buy candidates after doing that exercise for me, because ETR, Legendary Upside, and Sean Siegel were all ahead of ADP on Tyler Lockett. And to me, that's a buy signal, because I respect all of those ranking sets individually, but they all have different, flavors, biases, how they think about drafting strategy and rankings and projections. So when you have all 3 of them coming together and saying, this guy is mispriced, to me, that is a flashing billboard of this guy is a target. This guy is a target. So I've been trying to get some more shares of Tyler Lockett. It's hard to do because if you're anchored to ADP or trying to get Lockett at ADP, it won't happen, because a lot of drafters are using one of these ranking sets. And specifically, if you have the ETR ranking set, they have him at pick 84. And that means Tyler Lockett is not going to make it to his ADP. So I found the sweet spot to be, in this 104, 106 range. You can kind of get him there. But yeah, check out that video on the Deposit Kingdom. I think it's one of my favorite videos that I've made now in the past month. And just to hammer it home for you guys, there's 2 YouTube channels. There's this one, the Pete Overzet live stream channel, and then there's Pete Overzet's Deposit Kingdom. All of the, strategy videos, the pre-produced stuff, the non-live content is on the Deposit Kingdom YouTube channel. I would love if you guys subscribe to that. Going to have a ton of great videos there throughout the course of this off season. And that video, I think if you're enjoying this, you will love that video, because it's all about ADP, about ranks, about values, about guys to fade, and the people no one can agree on in draft. So please check that out. The 12 most controversial players in fantasy football over on the Deposit Kingdom channel. All right. We are going to need to think about a quarterback plan here at some point. We could just be building to, I think we take Jared Goff here, right? Jared Goff, we don't have a quarterback. Stack up our first round pick. His ADP is 115. I pick at 113. There's no way he's coming back to 128. I guess there's some way, but if you look at the Laporta. So we got the Achievers here, who has Laporta and only Jordan Love. I could see him definitely taking Goff with one of these 2 picks. I don't think we can risk it. We're going to take Jared Goff, get our first quarterback. And then this gives me a little bit more flexibility to work with. Obviously, Baker is a screaming candidate when we have Evans and Godwin. Geno is also a possibility with Lockett. Otherwise, no other viable stacking candidates quite yet. Here they come. Here come the youth chasers. Pete's team looking a little long in the tooth. Geriatric wide receiver room. I know. How many rookie running back, or not running backs, but how many rookies do I need to draft in the home stretch? Because I'm now through 10 rounds. I have 10 more picks. How many of those picks need to be rookies to get back in your guys' good graces? To quiet the rumors and the slander that Pete only drafts olds. How many do I need to draft? Come on, Kirk. You got to give me a realistic target. We got to do some math here. I only have 10 more picks. I can't draft 12 rookies. Give me a realistic goal. Thank you, Tyler. Devonta Smith just got a 3-year, $75 million extension. I need a realistic target number here. 8? That's tough because I still have to do a quarterback, although I could definitely do a rookie quarterback. That could be tough. 4? Okay, 4 seems like a reasonable one. You guys are got 4 rookies, Pete? Between 4 to 5. All right, if I do 4 to 5 rookies, I can get back in your guys' good graces. See, Waylon here, only 3. How about this? I will promise you 4. I will try to get to 5. Book it. Write it down. 4 rookies, Pete. Make it happen. Make it happen. I was hoping Jaden Daniels would come back. That would have been a nice thing there. Let's get this going. Let's get the party popping with Keon Coleman. Put the counter up. Put the counter up. 1 rookie. Keon Coleman. Boom. Did it for you guys. Keon Coleman. Come on down. You happy? 1 down. 1 down. Second year guys with no pictures count. That's what this is really about, right? Is it about age? Is it about year 1, year 2? Is it about not having pictures on Underdog? What does it mean? Weird take. The worst rookie, Keon Coleman. I need people's crystal ball if they can accurately, say that Xavier Legette is for sure going to be better than Keon Coleman, or Roman Milson is for sure going to be better than Ricky Pearsall. All of these guys are in the same tier. And I think you're lying to yourself if you have a high degree of confidence that one is so much better than the other, specifically before the NFL draft tells us what they think of these guys. Keon Coleman seems like a lock to be a day 2 selection. And to get that at pick 128 seems completely fine to me. Let's see. I was hoping Jalen Wright or Blake Corum would come back, but goddamn, JGFC is going to make this rookie mission difficult. Going to make this very difficult. All right, I'm going to grab this. You know what? Screw it. Let me see this board. Fuck. I'm trying to think here. I think this rookie mission forces me to take Drake Maye. I'm taking Drake Maye here. The rookie mission, there's 2. Boom. I really wanted to take Zach Charbonnet, another guy I like a lot, but I made a promise. I made a commitment to the chat. Will is trying to throw $5 at me as if I'm some best ball stripper to take Zeke. Here, dance for me and take Zeke. Willis, I will refund your $5 before I take Ezekiel Elliott. On this team, Zeke is like a nice pick when you just have a ton of rookies and you're like, some of these guys might not even see the field. But I feel like I have drafted enough geriatric running backs. Bindle says, I can't believe we've been drafting for 2 months already. I know. Trust me, I know. And I held out. You guys were drafting for more than 2 months, right? I mean, this contest opened at the end of January. What was it, like January 20th, 21st? I mean, that's closer to 3 months, Bindles. I've been drafting for 2 months because I held out for a month. Even I had to draw a line in the sand as a best ball bro and said, hey, I need a little break. Now, you still need to take 4 good rookies. Sorry, there's no good rookies left at pick 13. Get out of here. Everybody has their takes. JGFC says, now I'll chill with the rookies. Yeah, now once all the good ones are gone, now you'll chill. Yeah. You let chat screw with your game. I'm nothing without the chat. Wait, is this Kerrane drafting next to the crib? Yeah, shout out to Kerrane. Sounds like Vivian and Brittany are all doing great. You love to hear it. All right. Here you go. Boom. You want more rookies? Put this in your rookie pipe and smoke it. Roman Wilson. Boom. 3. Keon Coleman and Roman Wilson, along with Drake Maye. We've already done 3 rookies for you guys. You happy? I hope so. Freeman? Is this like a reference I don't get? Oh, God. This is some Dune reference. I don't even know what that sounds like. I have not seen Dune. The Fremen are a group of people in the fictional Dune universe. First appearing in the 1965 novel, The Fremen inhabit the desert planet Arrakis, also known as Dune, which is the sole known source in the universe of the all-important spice. God. Get out of here. I need more coffee. Ugh. Here's the team so far through 13 rounds. We got Jared Goff and Drake Maye at quarterback. We got Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, James Conner at running back. We got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, Tank Dell, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson at wide receiver. Doing pretty good at wide receiver. Tight end, Mark Andrews. Kate Otten goes, would have liked him for building out my big Bucks stack. This is a dead zone here for tight ends. We're likely looking at a 3 tight end build with 2 very late to pair with Mark Andrews. We're going to need Mark Andrews to be generational this year on this team. I have no problem with Dune. I think Dune sounds great. I'm excited to see it, but I'm sorry that I don't know the reference to do it. Davis doesn't understand that super chat implies I'm supposed to do an impersonation of them. I don't know what someone tell me what the Fremen people sound like. Write out a description of how they sound like, and then I will do an impression despite never hearing what they sound like in the movie. I am going to take Baker here and be done at quarterback. We get Baker a full round past ADP because we have Evans and Godwin. So we'll grab him, and then we are done at quarterback. Guys, I am not nerd bashing. I'm talking about my show. Shogun is the best show on TV. It's about as nerdy of a show as you can get. It's an ancient Japanese political drama. I'm not nerd bashing. I literally don't know how to do the impersonation. You could tell me to do the impersonation of a bodybuilder, a European bodybuilder. I wouldn't know what they sound like. I'm not jock bashing. And then look at this. See, this is, Yosh says, you can't do it without being problematic, so don't worry. So were you just trying to set me up to fail anyways? Is that what this was about? You're not even sending that super chat in good faith? You're trying to get me canceled? Be better. You guys worried about nerd bashing. How about trying to bait me into getting canceled? You guys are sick. 1 minute I just said I'm nothing without the chat, and now I'm really starting to re-question that. Really starting to question that. What are your guys' intentions? No, I'm not letting you off the hook. You must commit seppuku. That's right. Tyler does remember the Monty bit historically costs $5. We do need to bake in inflation. I think we're up to like $6.90 minimum for the Monty bit. All right. Let's see here. So we're going to need to figure out tight end. We're going to need to figure out a fourth rookie as promised. We're going to need some more running backs here. We can probably chill on wide receiver until maybe another rookie dart or two at the very end. At the very least, I think we need what? 2 more running backs, probably 2 more tight ends. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have 6 more picks. Yeah. Is this a Jawan Johnson pick? Jawan John, or what do we, is Drake Maye? You know what? I have not taken very much Hunter Henry. Is Drake Maye going to New England? That's where everyone thinks he's going, right? Should we stack it up? Let's take Hunter Henry. Did we just lock up a generational Drake Maye to Hunter Henry stack? I'm not taking Ertz. Hunter Henry is Hunter Henry even that old? How old is Hunter Henry? I'm looking it up. He is okay. He's actually older than I thought. Hunter Henry is 29 years old. I think gun to my head, I would have said 27. Life comes at you fast in New England. I think New England ages everyone just slightly faster than other places on the planet. Graphic calling May to Minnesota. God, I'm so excited for the NFL draft. We are going to see so much fun stuff. The fact that we are going to have arguably, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and probably 5 quarterbacks in the first 15 picks. God, that's fun. All kinds of potential trade-up scenarios. People coming up to get J.J. McCarthy. You got all of those guys at like 10, 11, and 12. Minnesota, Denver, Oakland, rest in peace. Las Vegas, who all need quarterbacks who could, be secretly maneuvering up. It is going to be so fun. We will have our annual live stream over on the Ship Chasing channel for draft night. We got to book some of our guests for that. Pat will be making his return from paternity leave for that draft show. Always a highlight. Can't wait to watch the first round of the NFL draft with you guys. Yeah, 3 pours. I felt bad last week for forgetting to do a coffee pour that I've tried to cover some ground. Okay. This feels like a spot to grab a running back. Should we do a rookie? Should we do Estime or Bucky? They both have ADPs right around here. Let's keep getting some rookies. Let's do Bucky. I mean, all of these guys are not great, but I promise the people rookies. Jared Goff, Drake Maye, Baker Mayfield at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, James Conner, Bucky Irving at running back, wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, Tank Dell, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson, tight end, Mark Andrews, and Hunter Henry. Get lubed up. I've gotten lubed up enough. Not quite to your extent. What are you at? Like 60% lube? Or what? Didn't you have, you just posted your exposure. I saw that tweet. Did I see you had like 80% Jalen McMillan? Wow. Next bit, blend ice cream during a stream and yell, "Let's get creamy." The creamy is loud. One of my favorite things about doing the Creami is when I'm spinning it at night, like whenever it turns on, like it's louder than, a traditional blender or Vitamix or whatever, but April always gets like this stunned face. She always goes like this when I turn it on. And then you have to spin it like 3 different times. You do your splash of milk, all the instructions I wrote about, and every single time I turn it on, April goes. When are you going to scroll the F down? I can't keep up with all these requests. First, it's stop drafting olds. Then it's draft 19 rookies. Then it's scroll the F down. I think I've already met my rookie quota here. Going back to some of the controversial players, and one that I didn't get to in the video, but do you guys know that ETR doesn't even have Roshan Johnson ranked? God damn it. I was setting up this spiel to select Khalil Herbert at 200, and then he goes. I was choosing between Bucky Irving and Audric Estime. If you take 2 dusty rookie running backs, maybe you land on one. That's my thesis there. Audric Estime slips 13 picks past ADP. The saddest and most depressed you'll ever hear. Bindles, I hope you saw in the draft. I was so upset at Spags that I was trying to get him to understand that Yoshi Voss was the best pick for that Joe Burrow team we had. And he wanted to take an unstacked, Trey Palmer instead of Yoshi Voss. I tried, Bindles. I tried to get Spags on the Yoshi Voss train. I will, guys, I'm excited about Dylan Laube, but if we're talking about, I guess Estime could fall like a rock in the draft too, but let's be honest, Estime has a clearer path to getting on the field right away. Laube is going to get there eventually. Lube is going to get there eventually, but it's going to be a long, meandering path through depth charts and special teams and injuries. All right. What do we got here? We got 2 more picks. God, man, tight end really sucks. You want me to scroll down? I've seen the underdog guys hyping up Johnny Wilson lately. How about that? How about that for a scroll down? ADP at 230. Are you happy? Are you happy? There's a scroll down for you. Scroll the F down to Johnny Wilson. Don't call him a tight end, Johnny Wilson. Oh, Davis now doing the bit where he projects the 46th rookie going to the Kansas City Chiefs. In Davis's perverted mind, the Chiefs have 600 rookie picks. They have 600 picks in the 2024 NFL draft. They get to pick every single rookie entering the league. And that way Davis can be right with these predictions. You guys want me to take Zach Ertz? You guys need to get consistent messaging. First, it was you're taking too many olds, and now it's swung back to take this specific old who might, in fact, be the worst of the olds. Take Zeke. Take Ertz. Get your messaging on point. I need you guys to all huddle up, get on the same page. Are we drafting olds or are we not? The Hoovian. Has anyone noticed that Devonta Adams is falling? At least he is in every draft I'm in. I'm up to 32%. So it's time to get wrecked this season. That's a pretty big stance for a round 2 player. That's a pretty big stance. To me, even being at 20% for a guy going in round 1 or 2 would be pretty big. 32% for a round 2 wide receivers. And unless you've been getting him in the 3rd round, doesn't change it that much, but that's a big stance. That takes some huevos. Hayden and Norris's video on Johnny Wilson was really good. Yeah, those guys have been putting out a ton of good prospect videos over there. Have been enjoying those as well. We need a Lube and Grady Dick jersey swap. Yeah. That's a good reference. Grady Dick, I remember watching some of his highlights at Kansas, and he looks like just such a Kansas boy, just such a corn-fed, white-ass basketball player. And then having the last name Dick, it's just too perfect. We are going to draft every single maligned rookie running back. That's what we're going to do here. That's what we're going to do. Will Shipley, come on down. Will Shipley, come on down. All right. Let the chat decide what position are we drafting for this final pick. Here's the team so far. It's a 3-6-8-2. We got 3 quarterbacks: Jared Goff, Drake Maye, Baker Mayfield. We're done there. I think we're done at running back: Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, James Conner, Bucky Irving, Audric Estime, Will Shipley. At wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, Tank Dell, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson, Johnny Wilson. At tight end, Mark Andrews or Hunter Henry. I think this is a decision between another rookie wide receiver flyer or a tight end. What position are we doing? Shipley chasing. That's actually good. I like that. Trey Palmer just got drafted. That would have made sense with a big onslaught here. Yeah, I mean, there's not much left to get excited about at tight end. I don't think it makes sense to do a tight end pick here. There's nothing stacking. There's nothing exciting. Mark Andrews and Hunter Henry can hold down the fort. But we're going to need a wide receiver. Yoshi Voss, rookie. Jamari Thrash. Let's see. Thrash, Yoshi Voss. There's no even other rookie wide receivers left. I think it's got to be Thrash. Yeah, Cowing. Yeah, Gretch. We should talk about Cowing a little bit with Gretch. I'm going to grab Thrash here. I know on Ship Chasing, we did the show last week with JJ, and Gretch brought up Cowing, who has kind of an interesting profile. Very productive, but, small and not that athletic. But we land the plane here. 3-6-9-2. I've taken Khalif Raymond so many times. I do know with the double stack there, it would have made sense. I think even I have Khalif Raymond fatigue at this point. He's been my de facto scroll the F down pick, but yeah, it would have made sense there. Look at when I issued the rookie challenge. Let's recap this. People were getting real worried. And then we took 1, Keon Coleman, Drake Maye 2, Roman Wilson 3, Bucky Irving 4, Audric Estime 5, Johnny Wilson 6, Will Shipley 7, Jamari Thrash 8. 8 rookies. And you guys were worried. I only had 10 picks, and I managed to do 8 rookies for you to balance out the dusty team I had been drafting. How do we think this one turned out? I kind of like it. It's polarized in that way, right? Where it's like you have the veterans at the top and then a bunch of like deep rookie flyers. I kind of like it. It would have been nice to have gotten like Cade Otton and been able to build out like a bigger Baker Mayfield stack. But I don't hate how this one turned out. I don't hate it. This was my 35th draft here. We got, what's the date today? 4/15. Tax day. Happy tax day, everybody. This isn't UCC. This is Best Ball Breakfast. 3-6-9-2. And we went, we'll call this a TB. Call this a TB team. There we go. Yes, exactly. Somehow the oldest team and the youngest team ever. MJ, this is the most like condescending thing, the most backhanded compliment. This is like on ADP chasing when they said that saying that's fair is a very derogatory thing. Saying A for effort, that's really derogatory. All right, our guest of honor is here. Let's bring him to the stage. Ben Gretch, fresh on the West Coast. Not even 8 a.m. there. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, but I'm a sad dad, man. I've been up for at least 3 hours at this point. I don't sleep very late, so I've been working on taxes. I heard you just mention it's tax day. This is gonna be a nice little break because taxes are not fun. I procrastinated. I've been plugging away this morning.
Yeah, I know. It is like that every year. I generally am not a huge procrastinator, but that one is one thing I'm just always down to procrastinate, and you just keep pushing it off and then are just miserable when you actually have to carve out time, because at least when you're working on your yard or something around the house, it feels productive. Doing taxes is just a time suck.
Dude, absolutely. And especially since starting to do this line of work more, and you would be just like me, having a couple different income streams and trying to figure out my own expenses. I have my newsletter as, my main source of income, but what are the expenses for that? The travel and stuff. I mean, it was a lot easier when I just used to work a job where I got a W-2 and could just plug in the simple stuff. It's not fun, man. So that's why I put it off. I'm I don't want to go through all this.
I know. Well, yeah, I'm excited to have you on Best Ball Breakfast. I know you recently were out of the state where you're not able to regularly draft, so you were able to fire off a bunch of slow drafts, and then subsequently you fired off a bunch of Substack posts on stealing signals, kind of with some of your early draft thoughts. So as someone who now just kind of getting into the big board and drafting for this year, what are some of your kind of initial impressions?
Yeah, I got a bunch, and as you said that, I went and checked my slows because I joined all these slows, and then they immediately moved it to the 4-hour timer, right after I got back. And I'm that was another reason why I'm doing taxes today. Is all last week I was 4-hour timering a bunch of these drafts, but it's been fun to work through slows, and especially at this point because I think there are things that have shifted, like you and Pat and Sean, and a lot of people have been doing really good content for a couple of months now. And I think, some of the value that was there in certain ways is probably squeezed out a little bit. And then I'm coming in now and I think maybe some opinions that are slightly different. I remember in some of our first shows, you were pushing Xavier Worthy, for example. And I think he was probably a really strong pick at that time. I can't remember exactly where it was at ADP wise, but you kept emphasizing this guy's going to go in the first round of the NFL draft. He ran a 4.21 and he has this good profile and everything. I still think he's a good pick, but in that range, I do question whether the rookie receiver ADPs have gotten out of control. And in one of my posts, one of the things that I said was a kind of an attack on Brian Thomas, who's going 66 right now. And I think his profile has some real question marks. And I mean, I think in seasonal, I could justify it more, right? You can stash a rookie if a rookie receiver isn't good for the first half of the year, they can just be on your bench for half a season. And also if they never hit, you can cut them. The leagues where we had Quentin Johnston last year, we eventually cut him and moved on. In best ball, you want somebody it's hard to take on a half season of no production, which some of these rookies can be total zeros for that long. I know it's easy to be the late season production could be there. What if they're the guy you need in week, 17, 16, whatever week it is, week 17. But it's a lot harder to stomach, especially in the double-digit ADPs, half a season of no production. AD Mitchell's another one who a lot of people have talked about his profile being questionable. And one of the things I wrote about last week that you were just referencing is just this idea of how I think there's these draft trends every year where one thing is happening at the top of a draft and it pulls up the next tier. And we've talked about this before with a lot of different things. An example I used was QB ADPs rising last year. I think it actually made sense for Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, those guys, because they had scored so well in 2022 to be up there in 2023. But then the next tier was brought up. And all offseason, we talked about, why is Justin Herbert going in round 6? Why is Trevor Lawrence going in round 6? These guys probably don't have a profile that justifies going in round 6 where the QB1 used to go, a couple years ago. But just because the QB1 is now going in round 2, round 3, doesn't mean the QB4 or 5 has to go in round 6. There could be a gap, but there never is because drafters just want to dip into that next tier. I think that's happening this year with some of the rookie receivers where the top 3 are such good prospects. You have Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, they all going so high. then you get Thomas coming off the board. You get A.D. Mitchell coming off the board. Those guys are more traditional wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 prospects in a class where some of them are going to bust. I mean, that's what happens with the wide receiver 5. And I don't want to be taking guys in that range. Like Brian Thomas, I compared to the two guys going right after him, Jordan Addison and Deontay Johnson. Jordan Addison was a hit as a rookie. He's good. We know he's good. There's questions about his quarterback play and the offense, but with Hawkinson coming back from injury and KJ Osborne gone, he's also the clear number 2. It's not a deep passing game. Like, that's a guy that we know is good. And in year 2, we tend to see, Corain's done the research on this, we see the routes bump. The routes aren't really, really high for rookies usually. You need the efficiency hit. There's some volume concerns of the rookie year. So that's part of why we like going into year 2. So we have a player who's good going into year 2, clear role on his depth chart, and he's going behind a guy we don't know is good. We don't even know the draft capital or landing spot yet. You're taking on risk there. That's all being assumed to be positive, and it should be positive for Brian Thomas, but we don't know that 100%. And so it's stuff like that where I'm like, man, that's an aggressive position for him to be in, ahead of a Jordan Addison type. So anyway, some of that stuff I've come in and I've been like, are we a little too ahead of the game on rookies? So it's interesting for the draft that I just saw you finish up where you're getting some crap for some older players in the early rounds. I think that's the way to play it. I think you want to take some of these stable players in the early rounds, take your rookie flyers late, which is what you did in your last draft.
Yeah, I think Brian Thomas is the perfect guy to discuss for like the point you're getting at. And one of the videos I made was, predicting dream landing spot and then trying to predict where they would go if that happened. And like Brian Thomas, I don't think he can move up much higher than like a round or so from where he's already at. Whereas I do think like if A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy land on the Bills or land on the Chiefs, like those guys can move up 3, 4, 5 rounds. Like there's a lot of room to grow, where Brian Thomas is like being drafted at like a near dream scenario. And I don't think it accounts for the fact that his profile is closer to that latter tier as opposed to the Rome neighbors tier. And so that like risk reward proposition there, the scales haven't been tilted in a way where I've selected him. I think I've taken him once or twice across like 40 drafts. And to me, it is a price thing where we know then when you're comparing like the guys that Keon Coleman and Roman Wilson, who they're going against, it's like, well, yeah, like we already know who these players are in the NFL and they probably don't have the ability to smash their ADP. But Jordan Addison's a great point of like, we know this guy is a baller, and without Hawkinson, and if they get decent quarterback play, he could smash his ADP. Jordan Addison could be a 3rd round pick next year.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned like Keon Coleman and those guys in that range, like that's outside of what we've always talked about as like the wide receiver window, where the veterans alongside them are guys that, don't profile as having the elite upside like you just described with Jordan Addison could be a 3rd round pick next year comment. The issue for me is when you're still taking some of these rookies that have a lot of risk with them around guys that are inside the wide receiver window, right? The Jordan Addison, Deontay Johnson's the next one. I know I've talked enough about Deontay Johnson on ship chasing this year so far. I know he's not sexy at all. Carolina's offense is terrible, but like this guy couldn't have landed in a better spot for what he does. He earns a lot of volume. The reason Adam Thielen got all the targets he got last year, at least in my opinion, is the complete lack of competition. I think him landing there, he's gonna soak up a ton of volume. He's a nice best ball play at an ADP past 70. I don't understand chasing the Brian Thomas profile when that's the opportunity cost inside the wide receiver window, as opposed to when you start talking about, like Troy Franklin going 124, and my opportunity cost is he goes one slot, a wide receiver slot behind Khalil Shakir, 2 spots behind Gabe Davis. Like, I want to take Troy Franklin stabs at that point. That's the type of rookie pick that I want to make in these early best ball drafts.
For sure. Yeah. We're on the same page there. I did just hop us into a draft. Looks like we're picking at the back end of the round, 111 here. Have you already done an exposure peak? I know you're in a bunch of slows, so it'd probably be someone more closer to the top of the board. Do you have a guy you're super heavy on?
I guess I don't know how to do the exposure until I get the drafts finished. I don't have any of my drafts finished yet, so I don't completely know yet. At the top, in the first round, I'm pretty balanced, I would say. The second round is where I feel like there's a lot of like landmines that I didn't want to be on, and so I wound up taking a little bit more of stances. And this is one of the positions that I wrote about was like the 110, 111, where I think there's a pretty big tier gap at the end of the first round where you basically don't get these guys ever falling to 202 that are, potential first rounders. Like in past years and in other draft setups, if you're at the 111, sometimes you'll get to your top 10 guys, or top 12 guys because somebody will pull somebody up. But it doesn't seem to happen this year. It seems like there's a clear top 12. So the 202 is going to be interesting when we get there. But the 111 here.
And you see who's drafting ahead of us, right? It's our buddy Alex Keaton.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this
he's going to take. I was going to say he was going to take Garrett Wilson, who I wanted to take, but I mean it does leave you AJ Brown. I would go Brown here because the other thing I've come to realize is I just want to get as much wide receiver exposure in the first, I think the optimal is 4 wide receiver times 4 right now because the tight ends in round 5 are really nice to take. Although at the 5'11", you might not get that option necessarily. I mean, some of the tight ends can get pulled up, and so maybe even you want to be considering the 402 at tight end, which therefore to me makes you want to be wide receiver early, even heavier, right? And so I mean, it's all pretty tricky in the early rounds.
Let's make this pick, and then I think we can plot ahead a little bit. So Kyron comes off the board. So ADP wise, you got like Barkley, Harrison, Taylor, London, Ayuk. You have a favorite of these guys?
This one's London for me. I think he's a tier above the other receivers, and we could talk through that as well. I don't dislike Harrison, but I've disliked his price early. I like Ayuk as well, and especially if he gets traded, I think he belongs there, but he hasn't gotten traded yet, and I'm not sure that he will. And so there's still that that issue of there's only one ball in San Francisco, right? London, thinner passing game, Cousins coming to town. I mean, I think is the answer to who's the next receiver once you hit this point. See, I don't have a problem with our buddy Alex P. Keaton taking Nico there. I think you got to pull somebody up at this point. This is where after AJ Brown and Garrett Wilson go, I think there's a pretty big drop off. London for me is the transition guy that does belong next.
I agree completely. And to your point, in the draft I just did, Nico went at the 2-3 turn. And it just shows that this set of wide receivers, people just are ordering them however they see fit because there is no clear. It's such an amorphous tier. And there have been some big shifts. Like I was mentioning on my first stream, I used to always get Waddle or Neighbors in the middle of the third. Now you're seeing Neighbors go in the second. And so I scooped Mike Evans in my last draft because I was he used to not be here in the late third. And so it's just hey, I'll just take what they give me as things kind of change.
I think that's exactly right. But yeah, as we were looking ahead on the tight end stuff, I really like the way this wide receiver starts to set you up because I think probably my favorite pick of anything right now is the tight end values you can get in rounds 4, round 5, the Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid. This isn't sorted by ADP, is it? That must be ranked.
I could sort by ADP here.
Yeah, see, that had Kincaid ahead of McBride. Is that Pat's ranks?
Let me see. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't notice that they flipped that. I don't know. I don't agree with that one. I've written this, but I would have McBride as tight end 1. I mean, I think his ADP is ridiculous. And I would also argue that he should be a second round pick right now. I don't think there's really any justification for all of these tight ends sitting around as long as they do. Laporta into the third, I think is understandable because you have some of the teammate concerns. How big is his upside? Can he really dominate targets when he's got Amon-Ra there, when he's got the running backs there, Jamison Williams there? And I think that's kind of holding all the other tight ends down in the inverse to the point I made about the rookie receivers where Brian Thomas is being pulled up by the elite top rookie wide receivers. I think because the tight end 1 isn't sexy enough to push up into round 2 that we're getting the tight ends pushed down. But I mean, you shouldn't be able to get this group of top 7-ish tight ends this late this year. Last year, the big storyline was we had a tight end resurrection. We have some really intriguing profiles at the top of the position now. It's exciting to draft all these dudes, and we know the value of an elite tight end to structurally to the builds that we're trying to make. So I always want to be in on
on those guys in my early drafts. I've taken a lot of tight ends in the like round 4, round 5 range, and then wide receiver dries up pretty quick. So if you do go like running back early, if you only have like 3 running receivers through round 5, round 6, it feels like not enough, So
yeah, it is wild on the tight end prices. Not only kind of like historically what you used to have to pay for them, which these have been second, early 3rd round picks, but also it's not like there's a ton of competition in the 4th round. Like wide receiver thins out. There's like no running backs going in that range. It's like ETN and James Cook. You would think tight ends would naturally fill that vacuum, and yet they still just chill out in the 5th round.
Yeah, you can tell that drafters agree with that, because once they start to go, all their ADPs are clustered, like big time. Like once McBride goes, Kittle's off 20 picks later. There's 5 tight ends that go in less than 2 rounds once they start to go. But everyone's kind of playing chicken. They're like, well, I don't have to take a tight end because no one else takes a tight end. I'll take one once they start to go, because there are 7 good ones. And then there's another mini tier of decent ones right behind that. And so people know that there's an opportunity to get them later, and so they're not really necessarily willing to push them up. But they should all be going higher. It's just the objective reality. I mean, it's something that I think later in the offseason we'll start to see. I think if you're doing any drafts over on FFPC, you would see it obviously with the tight end premium. I mean, they're because of what they can provide structurally, and because all their profiles, these top 7 or so tight ends, are strong. I mean, they are all good profiles. Like Kittle's the tight end 7. And he's not a bad pick. The only reason he's tight end 7 is because the San Francisco only one ball issue. But he's going to give you spike weeks. He had a bunch of 20-point weeks last year.
Not to mention all the Ayuk trade rumors, which would make him like just an uber smash if he got traded. Yeah.
He looks like, I mean, I want to be taking as much of each of these individual profiles as I can. Every time I look at him, I'm like, yeah, maybe Kittle's the one that I like the most at his price. They're all really interesting. Man, Laporta makes it all the way to 311 in this one.
Yeah, he normally goes a little bit ahead. This is where you get in the spot, like knowing we are going to like one of the tight end values at the 5-6 turn. Do you pass on Laporta? What do you think?
I could, yeah. I could take either Tank or I'm scooping the Rashee Rice value too, but let's take Tank, yeah. Oh, Pittman.
Do you want to do Pittman?
Too. I'm fine with Tank.
Okay. Yeah, Tank
I would probably
has been
be
a guy I've just been hammering. I think he's now my most drafted player because I was drafting him in the early 3rd before, and now I've just been taking him in the 4th like all the time as well.
He's we talked through Houston on a recent Stealing Bananas, and we're back up.
Do we just take Laporta at this point?
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Or what do you if you have another one, I don't mind. It's just like you never see Laporta this far.
You don't, and I would probably take Laporta. The other pick for me would be Rashee Rice. I've been taking on that risk. Obviously, there's a lot of risk there, but I've been willing to take on that risk. But I think Laporta at the ADP value makes the most sense right now.
I feel like we just hyped up elite tight end, how they're priced. The most expensive one finally.
McBride goes the next pick. I love that. I mean, he belongs in this range.
Well, I do.
I've drafted so much McBride. I'm comfortable taking Laporta at a discount to his ADP for sure.
Like one thing though, I'm wondering is, will we actually have a catalyst that ever pushes these guys up? Because like again, I'm thinking there's this dead zone void right now for running backs where we know when people get clearer pictures after the NFL draft, they get more confident about Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco. Like those guys are going to push up into this range. And I'm like, what is going to vault? Like what more information do you need about, Travis Kelce, at this point, or these guys, Mark Andrews, like what's going to change for these guys? They might just chill here all off season.
No, I think you're totally right. And it's interesting. Like as a content person, sometimes you're like, if I see something that I think is really interesting and a big opportunity, like how clearly do I want to say? Because you in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't want to blow up ADP. Like I am doing these drafts too. I want to get some exposure to these things. Part of the reason I'm willing to be that comfortable saying like I would take McBride in the 2nd round is I don't know that he's gonna ever get there. Like to your point, it's challenging to see how this changes, but. Because it is the dynamic of there's 7 of them, and people are kind of playing chicken, and it's like, well, if I don't get Laporta, then I'll get Kelce. If I don't get Kelce, I'll get McBride. If I don't get McBride, and go down the list. I'll get Dalton Kincaid next round. I mean, it's an interesting conversation. I think it creates a really interesting situation. The thing that I would emphasize is, especially as their prices stay low, don't fall asleep. Like make sure, because you don't have to reach, you can wait, but make sure you're getting exposure to them. Once they start to go off, make sure you're hammering them. Their ADPs are going to start to cluster, I think, though. Like you see McBride go right after Laporta, and they're already clustered, but they're going to cluster even more. We just saw 4 go in that round. It wouldn't surprise me if the other 3 go in this round now that we're sitting here talking about it.
Yeah, David in the chat says, do we think that once the drafts are 18 rounds, obviously these big board drafts are 20, the difficulty of backfilling tight end pushes up the elite tight end price? I think like holistically, I would agree with that. But the counterpoint is the tight ends are so weak late. Like it's
already hard.
Guys. Yeah. So it's like, even when you wait, you're like, God damn, like I better get Dalton Schultz. Otherwise things are going to go to shit here fast. So I don't know if that's actually the case.
I guess it's possible if people are just thinking they have to do more 2 tight end builds than like they're thinking with volume, 3 tight end builds are easier. And I guess it's possible it has a little impact, but I agree with you that it's going to be hard to see them get ahead of some of these names in the 3rd round, the wide receivers. And then, like you said, running backs are going to push up for sure. Like, that's one of the things I've been expecting to come for some of the wide receivers that I think are still hanging out too high. Like DJ Moore's, I still think hanging out too high, even though I don't want to be anti DJ Moore again this year. I'm definitely drafting him some. I want exposure to him. He's going to be super fun. He was great last year, and he's going to be super fun with Caleb Williams. Most of my concern for him last year was just about the way that Justin Fields plays quarterback, takes a lot of sacks and scrambles a lot in those things. So Moore's a guy I want to be on, but obviously with Keenan Allen there, I mean, I just think his price is a little bit pricey, but I think running backs will take those spots in the spots that those receivers slip. They'll be filled by running backs typically.
All right.
This is already tough at receiver. You got Amari Cooper, you got Brian Thomas, who we were just hating on. Who you want to just filter by receiver real quick, and who else is? Yeah.
So you could do receiver. We could grab Anthony Richardson or like a Mixon to go with Tank would be kind of. It's like
I haven't taken Cooper yet, but I would probably take another receiver here because we already went tight end. Personally, we can go Richardson if you want, but
no. Let's get. We'll grab Amari. So now we got.
I felt like after Amari, it was tough at receiver, and so coming back around here, we can get the other non-receiver pick. But I wanted to get a 4th solid receiver at a good ADP value there.
Yeah.
So Amari Richardson does go, but we can use this pick on an anchor running back if we want to, or we could hit Kittle or Pitts and use a second tight end as well.
Yeah, there's really nothing here, quarterback or wide receiver we want to do. So yeah, it's a running back. It's like Mixon, Pacheco, Walker.
I like the Mixon pick.
Pitts. Yeah, I took him in my last draft. Like he was another guy. I mean, I said earlier, I was like, he's like a lock to go 2 rounds higher than this. By the time the season rolls around,
I took him as my RB1 in a very similar 0 RB build, and I was like. I have like 20 drafts going right now, but I had one that was very similar to this in the first 5 rounds, and I took him a little bit behind ADP, and I was like, he's a really nice RB1 in this construction. I don't like Joe Mixon. I've never liked the talent. Houston's offense is awesome. They're going to be really, really good. CJ Stroud's incredible. Joe Mixon has had the greatest run out, I think, of any running back in this generation for the offenses he's gotten to play in, basically. Like, he is now locked into another elite young quarterback with really strong receivers, and he's going to benefit from light boxes and more goal line carries than he deserves. Like for the Bengals, he's been really poor on the goal line, but they also just kept giving him the ball a million times, right? Like he's going to probably score more touchdowns than his skill set really indicates that he probably deserves. He's a really nice RB1 just on like volume and touchdowns, and he'll get some dump offs. I mean, all these things are going to be really nice for him.
I mean, if we, this is the same offense that made Devin Singletary a top 15 back down the stretch last year when they turned over the keys. If this just green card didn't say Joe Mixon and it said either Devin Singletary or Houston RB1, I mean, like, yeah, it's just that we all hate Joe Mixon and we're all sick of wanting him in our lives, and yet we're playing fantasy football and he's the lead back on arguably the best offense in football.
And especially if it said Houston RB1 that they traded for and immediately extended.
They gave him money that they should not have given him.
That didn't need to give him. Exactly. Like they're going to use him. He's going to be their number one. Like that's one of the things I was trying to say about him getting these runouts is he hasn't been in offenses where I think sometimes when you put a veteran running back next to a rookie quarterback, they're like, well, we're going to use the veteran running back to take some of the pressure off the rookie quarterback in the red zone and in some other spots where they're just going to give him the ball too much. Like, I think that's part of why they extended him. They're like, yeah, he's going to be good for CJ Stroud. He's not, but they think that, and they're going to use him in that way. And I think the Bengals did it too sometimes in protecting Joe Burrow, which they didn't probably need to do. But he just gets like all this amazing work, and defenses don't care about him because they're actually worried about stopping the player that's good in that backfield, the young quarterback that's really productive. So anyway, he's a pretty easy pick at this point in the early sixth.
Yep. Bindles, Spags, David Montgomery. Man, my best Spags impression right now. Oh yeah, Spags did have this line from my show. Let me try my best Spags here. He's like, you just take Jane Daniels because Jane Daniels is a hybrid between CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. I don't know if I can do a Spags voice correctly, but that was the Spags take. So the Jane Daniels price is going up around the Spags household.
Hybrid of Stroud and Anthony Richardson is it's a really good player.
I was like, well, Stroud's about to be the 101 in Superflex Dynasty, which I think means Jane Daniels should be going off the board before the draft even starts.
That's great.
All right, let's see.
See, at this point, wide receiver's so gross. I mean,
Mitchell
went, and I get why Mitchell goes at this point because it is tough. Godwin is a guy that I would be willing to take some of again this year, but I'm not drafting a lot of like I was last year. When you were just looking at the grid, there was a couple other receivers that had gone off that, and then you come over here and it's Christian Watson, it's Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
Like Hopkins was, JSN I've taken as a when he falls as like, look, at least I can tell myself a story, but I'm not going to be like 100% all in on JSN again this year either. But yeah, it gets really thin at wide receiver at this point, but we got some running back values.
For sure. Nice. Yeah. And this is why it's nice too. Like, yeah, we don't grab a quarterback, but like the Amari pick, getting that wide receiver, like the 2v2 on the running back wide receiver, we're going to really like the Amari versus in Jalen Warren or Najee or whoever versus, the inverse of that. Let's see.
The only other thing you could say is if you wanted to do Watson and try to get Love and stack up Green Bay, and keep pushing RB2.
I like Dobbs and Wicks and the tight ends.
I do too.
Which of these running backs do you like? This is.
I'd probably take Jalen Warren at this point. Mostert is one I would take. I think I've taken Najee once. I mean, at this point, he's probably somebody that makes sense as well. And I've taken some DeAndre Swift. So I'm taking a lot of running backs in this range. I don't like the receivers. DeAndre Swift, to me, I mean, another guy got a good contract, right? Like the team told us they're going to use him and that offense is going to be better. And it's a new coaching staff. Like there's no guarantee. Like he has some good backups behind him, but there's no guarantee it's going to be a huge committee. He was disappointing last year, but at this price, I think DeAndre Swift's kind of a smash too. Mostert led the NFL in TDs last year. At this price, I think is a smash. Yeah, he's older. Yeah, they could draft another running back and he could lose some of his work, but I'm willing to take that risk here. This is a nice range for running backs. And like I said,
really is.
Even Najee, I don't like, but I would take.
Right. So we have our choice. We took Mostert, and now do you want Warren, Swift, or Najee? I'm fine with
it. It'd be one of the top two.
I haven't taken much Swift. I want to take Swift and hear you kind of talk about him. Obviously, kind of disappointed relative to expectations last year, but then lands in a pretty good situation again with a ton of money thrown at him. What's the bull case for DeAndre?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's always been a really good receiver. He always had I don't usually cite targets per out run for running backs because it's so situational. It's checkdowns and things like that. But he always had numbers in Detroit that were, and across multiple quarterbacks, I'm pretty sure, that were in a range that was like, okay, he's adding something. Or their offense is intentionally throwing the ball to him. When you get 3 straight years of targets per out run for a running back that are like 25+% or in that 25% range, that's really impressive. And then he goes to the Eagles, and we all knew he wouldn't get as many targets. It was a really bad fit for his receiving skill set because Jalen Hurts scrambles so much. Obviously, the tush push takes away a lot of the touchdown equity, and he just needs to be a really good runner. Now, behind a good offensive line, we would have expected him to probably be a better runner than he was. But I still think he goes to the Bears, he gets the money, and he's going to be back into like a pretty much lead role. and with some potential for the receiving stuff to rebound and look better. Like Caleb Williams is also mobile, but I would expect some dump offs for DeAndre Swift in a way that the receiving starts to rebound. Probably the touchdowns are decent. I was just mentioning this with Joe Mixon, but again, you get a rookie quarterback. I don't have any data to back this up, but I feel like the rookie quarterback pass rate in the red zone is usually lower. Like offensive coordinators don't want to, they're afraid that the rookie quarterback's going to throw a pick in the red zone, right? So they're more likely to just call run plays. So where he was losing all of his rushing TDs to Jalen Hurts last year, he now goes to a team where he's going to be in the backfield with a rookie quarterback that maybe their run rate in the inside the 10 and inside the 5 is abnormally high. Maybe some of that goes to Roshan, right? Maybe some of that goes to Khalil Herbert. Those guys are probably better fits for that stuff, but it wouldn't surprise me if Swift had a pretty solid high value touch role, caught some passes, got some rebound on his touchdown equity that he didn't really have with the Eagles last year.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's so weird how the thesis changed a little bit, because we were, the selling point for Swift in Philadelphia was like twofold. Hey, this has been like an electric runner now in one of the best offenses in football. But there might not be a lot of goal line carries around. That latter part proved to be true. But you have to assume his goal line expectation is now, it's probably up now relative to what it was in Philly.
Yeah, it's going to be a good offense. I mean, similar to the Mixon conversation, like Caleb Williams maybe won't be an immediate smash, but they went and got Keenan Allen. Cole Kmet had like a little bit of a mini breakout that I don't think people are giving him enough credit for. Obviously, DJ Moore was fantastic. They're being mocked Rome Odunze. I got asked about that the other day because we didn't talk about it a lot on Bananas when we broke down the Bears. I kind of am skeptical that they're actually going to take Odunze. I feel like that's the mock pick that everyone's putting there because they want Odunze in the first round. But Kyle Dvorak, I think it was, noted that the Bears only have 4 total picks, including those 2 top 10 picks. So they're going to take Caleb Williams 101. 109 is they only have 2 more picks after that. It's a really strong trade back candidate for them to add another like day 2, round 3 pick and maybe a future pick as well. They have some other issues as well. If they do stay put, there's some people that have said that they might go offensive tackle there, depending on the way that, like picks 7 and 8 land. So I don't, there's a lot of consensus that Odunze is going to get picked to the Bears at pick 9. I'm not certain it will happen that way. It still very well could. And if it does, I mean, just one more reason that the Bears offense could be really, really good this year. And again, like DeAndre Swift's the veteran running back that just got brought in for big money and is going to get touches as a result of, he's going to get touches and then goal line opportunities and high value touches as a result of that offense being productive. We don't know that Caleb Williams is going to be a total smash. Like we know that CJ Stroud is good, but it's a good setup. I mean, he got good guaranteed money. I'm pretty comfortable with him in the 8th round. I mean, it's not like you're having to pay 4th round or 3rd round prices to make this case.
For sure. So yeah, this is an interesting spot. I was just checking the lay of the land. Obviously, Goff with Laporta or Kirk with Drake could potentially be, if we're trying to plot out some quarterback stuff. There's also some of the rookies. We're still kind of in a running back range here. Although we do have a couple rookies here. I can sort by ADP. We got a 0-3-4-1 build about to pick at the end of the 9th.
So I would be curious your thoughts on structurally where we should go here, because I think at some of my drafts I've dropped the ball in this range a little bit. I have been all over the place with my quarterback strategies. I kind of like that idea of going and trying to lock up some of our stacks now. I think the running backs here are interesting, but could be interesting later as well. What were we going to say?
I think running back really dries up. My recommendation would be a running back and a quarterback with these 2 picks. Do you have a favorite of these running backs?
No big favorite, but Zamir White, Tyjae Spears, all those guys
are fun. Yeah. Brooks?
Let's take Brooks. Yeah, sure.
So my only thought is like we kind of have these 3 veteran backs with like pretty good roles. Let's take like a big swing.
Yep, I like
with
that.
Jonathan Brooks.
I haven't taken a lot of Brooks because I typically don't have 3 running backs by this point. I really like him as an RB4. That makes perfect sense.
And then my thought too of like, we're getting close to like being in pretty good shape at running back. And then we're going to be able to use a bunch of like late mid-round picks on the rookie wide receivers.
That's why I like to get these 4 good ones early. I mean, we can just hit that later now. And it's going to be a nice texture to our receiver room. I think the QB pick makes a lot of sense. Yeah, let's do it.
Goff, right, as your preference
sure.
over like Kirk, do you think?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess they're probably, I guess the one, if you were guaranteed like all the full health stuff on Kirk, they're probably like a coin flip, maybe just slight tiebreaker with Goff's health.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. Is I would lean Goff because of the Achilles rehab, but otherwise it would feel like a coin flip. They're both playing in domes. The other thing I think you can say for Goff is he's a little bit insulated from teammate risk, where he has a lot of good players around him, and Kirk doesn't necessarily. Like if London goes down, or I guess on this team it would suck, but if Pitts goes down or something, like they don't have a really deep receiving room. I guess they do have Darnell Mooney, and Bijan is helpful. It's close between the two, but I feel more confident probably on the Lions offense overall. I feel a little bit more confident that even if they got one injury to one of their pass catchers, that Goff would still have a good TD rate and they'd still be scoring points in Detroit. Maybe a little more risk that Atlanta's just like not very good as a team, and so the TD rate's not great, but it's super close.
Yeah, I agree. So our team here, we got the Goff Laporta stack at the onesies, doing well at running back: Joe Mixon, Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Brooks. I like this room because it's a couple running backs that I haven't been taking a ton, Mostert and Swift. And then we still got our 4 wide receivers at the top: A.J. Brown, Drake London, Tank Dell, Amari Cooper. And I do think this is going to set up well for us to then kind of hammer wide receiver through this range.
Yeah, and I'm finding as we're doing this is one of my first lives. I've done a lot of slows, and I've been picking them really quick. I had my daughter's 13th birthday party sleepover this weekend, so we did the newly teenage girl sleepover. Busy weekend, a lot of quick draft picks. But I'm finding as I look at this that I really like what we're doing here. When you get these early 4 receivers that I liked. I think you want to go away from receiver in this range and start to build out running back and make sure you hit your quarterback position. Certainly should have a tight end by this point, and then go back to receiver with the rookies later. I mean, I think that's going to set up really, really nicely. I've taken some receivers in this range because I've kind of just wanted to chase that 5th receiver. I've taken it. Yeah. I know from your video, Tyler Lockett, I've taken some of him. I like Cortland Sutton's price. Mike Williams is one that I've taken more than I would have expected, but he's with the Jets now, and it's like a pretty good fit with the quarterback for his skill set, I think. Just trying to kind of build out these receiving rooms, but I think going away from it makes a lot of sense if you can get 4 good ones early.
It is weird. I mean, obviously Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall go in the first round, but there's like not much buzz on anything else with the Jets, which it's like we have Rodgers coming back. Like he's incredibly cheap in these drafts. Like I don't know if he should be viewed that much differently than Kirk as far as like coming back from injury and like what we know Aaron Rodgers is. And to your point, like there's no buzz on Mike Williams. I know he's obviously coming off an injury too, but all the timeline stuff sounds like he's going to be good to go.
Yeah. And his skill set, again, like not a great creator of separation, but a really good ball winner, a downfield player, needs a precise passer. That's always been Aaron Rodgers' thing. Like I would argue that's a big reason why Christian Watson had the rookie season he did, was Rodgers put those types of passes out there for him. Watson better separated than Mike Williams is going to be, has more athleticism, more speed, right? But I think Rodgers is at his best, is the right QB for Mike Williams. Like we've never had to pay these prices. I've never been in on Mike Williams, but we're now getting to pay like 8th, 9th round prices to get that Mike Williams, like boom week potential, big play, high TD rate potential with Aaron Rodgers. Like, yeah, I want to take some. And then like, who's their number 3? Like you said, like it's Allen Lazard, Tyler Conklin. Like it's another one where he's a clear locked in number 2 in my mind right now. They're going to probably draft somebody. They've been mocked like Bowers and some of that stuff, but he's going to be a part of the passing game. Mike Williams, when healthy, they don't have enough depth in this passing game. So he's a nice one, I think, to into him more than I would have guessed I would have been into him.
Should we just lock up Kirk? I mean, we were kind of debating, and then this kind of gives us the flexibility to be just done at 2 if we want.
Yeah, that's a super easy pick for me. I happy to be done at quarterback. I don't like making the decisions in the later rounds. I think a lot of the guys that you have to make in the later rounds at QB are not going to start 17 games, and so it's tricky.
So this definitely feels like it could be a final running back pick or a wide receiver is kind of.
I don't love any of the receivers. Where are you at on Sharps? Sharp
I love Sharps. Sharps and Wright both jump out to me, and I love Sharps.
I'm good with Wright too. I don't know the rookies well enough. So I default to the vets.
Let's do Sharps. I think he's an awesome pick, and I think we're done basically at running back unless there's something we like really love.
Nice. Yeah. The one thing I'll say about Wright is I did see in the RotoViz rookie guide, they seem to be kind of down on him. His what is it? Their prospect score was pretty low. I know some people like his athleticism, but they focus a little more on the production, even at running back. Yeah, and I believe his production was not great and a little bit older, and so you kind of really have to lean into that athletic profile for him. It gets me a little bit concerned that, you know, you kind of need the draft capital with him is probably the point. No, he was only a 3-year guy. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. I'm probably butchering that, but he's definitely got some athleticism, I know. So
yeah, I think, and you know, to me, it's like I think there's a pretty wide range of outcomes on who's actually going to be the third running back off the board. You know, assuming Brooks and Benson are first, like wouldn't shock me if it's Corum, wouldn't shock me if it's Wright, wouldn't shock me if it's Braylon Allen, wouldn't shock me if it's Marshawn Lloyd. And so like, I feel like, you know, this historically has been a sweet spot for zero RB picks, 12th, 13th round. And if Jalen Wright is the third or fourth running back off the board to like a decent landing spot, like that's something we're going to be in on.
It's probably a good hit. It's also that sweet spot of rookie running backs, right? Like I know a couple years ago, I think it was Sean, right? That did like round 9 to round 11 or whatever it was, right in this range is like where rookie running backs can really smash. So yeah, that's probably another good reason to be getting some exposure to these guys in this range.
And I mean, I'll tell you what, like, I mean, we can look at like what's coming at running back, and there's a few things I like here. Some of those rookies I just mentioned, you know, Ty Chandler, there's some nice handcuffs, Algier, Rico, but like, man, I like when I'm not having to catch up at running back in this range because it really thins out to the point where you are at risk of taking on some like dead roster spots
for sure.
Of these drafts.
Yeah, some of the slows that I'm getting to that point now where I do need to add some running backs, and I don't like the available running backs. Keith Mitchell was down there. He's apparently having a really good rehab. It was a clean tear, from what I understand, not a multi-ligament thing. Obviously, Derrick Henry's there, but he is on track to be their like pretty clear number 2. He's one that I think is too cheap. He's like really, you know, going really, really late. There's a couple like big time scroll the F down guys that like Dearness Johnson is completely undrafted, but he ended up beating out Tank Bigsby, and I think everyone's just kind of like Bigsby's the backup. But if they don't add another back, I would bet on Dearness Johnson being the handcuff to ETN. You can get him in literally the 20th round every single time. And then there was another handcuff that I was like, why? This is probably the number 2, but people don't think it's the number 2. And he's going super, super late. Yeah. I'm going to look at the teams real quick before I figure out who it is.
Yeah, this is, I like how this structure is breaking for us as far as how it syncs up with the sweet spots of the board, because now we are like, this is where I want to get back in at wide receiver. You know, like on the board just by ADP right now, Dotson, Wicks, Michael Wilson, Xavier Legette, Mims, Mooney, Roman Wilson. I'm not going to say Adam Thielen's name, Demario Douglas. Like now we're getting back into a sweet spot here.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of interesting ones. Did you say you're not going to say Demario? Are you taking way too much Demario Douglas?
No, I said not saying Adam Thielen's name.
Oh, Adam Thielen. Yeah. No, we're not taking him. I poo-poo that. I can't figure out who this other... Samaje Perine. Everyone really loves Julian McLaughlin, but Perine still, I mean, he might get cut, I guess. He has like a decent amount of money owed, and there's some dead money, but it would actually save him some money. But I don't know why they would cut him if they haven't cut him yet. Okay. Like, he's probably going to catch, like, this is the Sean Payton offense that uses multiple backs and throws to running backs a ton and all that stuff. Perine's going way on the scroll to F down range, and I was like, okay, well, I think he is worth taking at the end of a running back build.
Yeah. Let's see here. Marvin Mims, Roman Wilson, Demario Douglas. I normally don't consider Mooney, but we do have the stack. What do you think?
I'd probably be Douglas or Mooney.
Let's do Mooney.
Let's do the stack. Yeah.
We got the stack. And then
I haven't been taking a lot of Mims. I'm a little concerned about the Payton offense and how it plays out. Michael Mayer is a really interesting tight end too at this point.
he goes. Man, so the beast is starved at tight end. So I think we're going to have to get creative with tight end later. I think we should take Roman Wilson or Demario Douglas.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with either of those.
Let's get a little rookie in here just because we're, as the chat would say, getting old in the tooth. No, not you. Roman Wilson.
Yeah, I like that. Let's get a rookie in there.
So we got Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins at quarterback, Mixon, Mostert, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Brooks, Zach Charbonnet at running back, wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Drake London, Tank Dell, Amari Cooper, Darnell Mooney, and Roman Wilson, and then Sam Laporta at tight end. But yeah, I'm with you on the Mims stuff, and that was one, I highlighted in the video, Sean kind of being ahead of everyone else on Mims once again. But I am just so skeptical of we've just made so many excuses for why he can't get on the field. And then it's Sean Payton now saying, it was because Jerry Jeudy was blocking him. And it's at some point, it just feels like Sean Payton is making excuses, and I'm not sure anything's actually going to change. I
kind of completely agree with that. And the thing I would add is just the Payton offense last year looks so much like the Saints offense, and the Saints offense under Payton, when I used to do projections back in those days, it was the easiest one to project. It was so consistent. I think we put way too much weight on stuff like roles in different offenses. I've been getting asked a couple of times about Ryan Grubb taking over for the Seahawks. He was the coordinator for the Huskies. And so a lot of UW stuff I get asked about, they're like, what do you think about JSN and the Jalen McMillan role? And I'm like, I don't think you can really use roles for Jalen McMillan was injured a lot in his final year. The Huskies offense used a ton of different formational stuff. I think we use the idea of a role in an offense and try to patch it into something else incorrectly a lot of the time. And having said that, I think Sean Payton's the offense where it was always pretty easy to do that. Marcus Colston and then Jimmy Graham and Michael Thomas all played this X receiver role. And then he rotated other receivers, and no one else ever had big numbers in all those years with the Saints, even though Drew Brees would have massive passing numbers because they would rotate. And that's Courtland Sutton. That's how Courtland Sutton was used last year. And then they throw to the running backs a ton at a really, really high clip. And they did that last year in Denver as well. And so Mims, I think, could be a vertical threat and have some explosive plays and some of that stuff. But to your point, there's also some concern about the excuses we made about whether he's actually that guy and good enough. And so, I think there's a real concern that he kind of remains somewhat pigeonholed, isn't fully unleashed. Jerry Jeudy had some decent numbers, and he was relatively close to Courtland Sutton in production if you just take away the touchdowns. They were actually very, very similar if you take away the touchdowns. But I do think what we saw last year is so reminiscent of the old teams where I worry about the second downfield weapon behind Sutton.
Not to mention, there's the continuity variables that scare us, like Sean Payton not wanting to put him on the field. But then there's also uncertainty variables. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be. As someone mentioned in the chat, he could get pushed down the depth chart by a rookie. The Broncos could certainly, after letting Jeudy go, be in the market to draft one of these day 2 or 3 guys. There's so many ways this could still go wrong. And if we're talking about a 17th, 18th round pick, maybe that's baked into the cost. But I think there is still an opportunity cost to passing on a guy like Roman Wilson, who could be the guy that comes in and does what we wanted Marvin Mims to do in Denver.
I don't even love the Roman Wilson profile, but the fact that he played for Harbaugh and that's the nut landing spot for wide receivers is I want exposure to him. If he lands with the Chargers on day 2, if they take him in the second round, I don't even care if they took Neighbors in the first round. He's still going to be a huge riser from the 14th round. He's going to go in round 10 at that point.
At that point, I start to actually hope, I would love in my dream scenario, I actually did, and some people didn't like this, I did Neighbors and Troy Franklin to the Chargers of being let's just backfill the Keenan and Mike Williams. And I actually think that's a bullish signal for the second wide receiver. It's no, now the offense will actually tilt pass heavy. Let Justin Herbert cook a little bit more and not just run this archaic run-based offense.
For sure, yeah. And it's such a thin passing game that I don't think you run into target competition issues. That only happens at 4 really good players. They have 0. Josh Palmer was decent last year. He actually took a little bit of a step forward, and I would take a little bit of him late. Quentin Johnson was terrible. They don't have anyone else. They don't have a tight end. Austin Eckler's gone. Who's catching passes?
So Jalen Polk just went, tight ends. There's like Jawan Johnson, Conklin on the board, Malachi Corley, or we can get down to like Jermaine Burton and Devontae Walker types.
I'd probably just take a rookie. I don't have a strong opinion here. Maybe
let's just
Baker.
do Javon Baker. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion either. This just feels like the time to start cranking some of these rookies. What do you want to think through as far as tight end 2 strategy? Do you have any names you like here?
I have not had to do this a lot because I have been taking 2 reasonably early. The couple times that I did, I was looking at Okonkwo a little bit. Gesicki a little bit, and it's really gross, but I think Zach Ertz is a decent pick. Like he played under Cliff Kingsbury. He caught a bunch of passes under Cliff Kingsbury. After they got Kingsbury, they also brought in Ertz. They got rid of Thomas immediately. The way that they waived Logan Thomas immediately was like, yeah, okay, Ertz is now our tight end. They pretty much made it clear that Ertz is going to run a lot of routes.
How about this?
Let's take Burton.
We'll do Burton, and then it sounds like we're comfortable kind of like dumpster diving for maybe a couple tight ends to pair with Laporta.
I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but we don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice. Comfortable as in what our new reality is.
Right.
JJ was getting us hyped on Jermaine Burton, though, on Ship Chasing the other night. So we do grab 3 straight rookies here, Roman Wilson, Javon Baker, Jermaine Burton. And this kind of dovetails to how we were talking at the top of the show, where it's like we bank in, we know the talent profiles of these early wide receivers. We know what we're getting. We feel pretty confident what their role is going to be. Now let's take some darts and embrace the kind of volatility of these wide receivers.
Yeah, I love it. We threw Mooney in there to build out the stack, but otherwise got some of the rookie upside, some of the exposure to maybe landing spot upside, some of the exposure to maybe just late season, spike weeks. If some of these veterans in our early part of our draft do well early but fade, which does happen, like if Amari Cooper gets banged up a little bit this year or whatever, and it isn't as much production towards the end of the season, we have potential for these rookies to come on late. I really like the shape of our receiver room, the way it comes out. I don't even really love these profiles necessarily. I don't love Roman Wilson. I'm a little bit more skeptical on Burton. I've heard, and JJ mentioned it, he led some really good teams in receiving. But if you actually go dig into like how much production that actually was, I do think it's like a minor crutch to say that he was sort of leading these teams, because at times he was leading them, or like in his sophomore year at Georgia, he was second on the team in receiving behind only Bowers, but he didn't even have 500 receiving yards. He was at 497, and then McConkey and Adonai Mitchell were right behind him in the 400s as well. And it's like, okay, well, they were all like clustered, and so yeah, he led all the receivers in receiving yards, but it's not like he had a monster season or anything. Never had an 800-yard season in college. Some of it was just that these offenses were spread out, and so he did lead them. But I don't know that like his production is good enough then to say he's great or anything to that effect. He never caught more than 40 passes in a college season. Like, he's good, but I do think the production is being overstated a little when we say those types of things. Having said that, it is still true that he was good at Georgia and at Alabama on deep passing games. I'm just basically saying I wish he had a season in there that was a little bit more of a dominant season, the dominator rating, all those types of things, yards per team attempt, any of those stats. You'd like to see a breakout season. We don't really have that in his profile, even though he has those years on his profile where he was leading good teams. So he's good, but I don't love it. But I still think like at this point and in this build, this is a type of rookie receiver risk I want to be taking in April.
Right. And because there's 2 things you're aiming for, right? Like, we do all want the Puka, the Tank Dell, the rookie year Amon-Ra, the guy that just emerges as this really good football player, target earner, and becomes a top 24 wide receiver. But we also know, like, we could just be hunting for a single spike week here, from in the vein of, A.T. Perry did it last year, Tyquan Thornton on Pat's team. Like, these guys could, maybe they aren't. They probably aren't, the massive target earners, but they could be a single week spike guy at the right time.
And that's why I think it's so important to get 4 receivers as early as we did. I mean, that's why I've been saying I think the optimal is 4 wide receiver times 4 to start. We did wide receiver times 3 and then took one in the 5th. But like, you get 4 guys that are good enough that they could basically be a 4 wide receiver build for a lot of the season, which is challenging, for anyone. But we did get some guys that could be consistent enough target earners that's maybe possible with a random Darnell Mooney week or whatever, where these rookies won't necessarily have to be relied upon. It's still, I mean, we still would obviously like at least one of them to be a somewhat consistent producer through the regular season. But yeah, to your point, in some respects, we're just looking for that massive playoff, week. We also have we have Laporta, we have a strong running back room, we have 2 pretty good quarterbacks. Even if we're weak at our wide receiver 3 some weeks early in the season, we could score enough to advance. So
2 names at tight end I was just going to throw out. One, there's the rookie, Ja'Tavion Sanders. And then no Fant, I kind of like. We also have Zach Charbonnet. Do you have a preference on one of these guys?
I would say take Sanders first because it's a 3 tight end build, and I like the rookie upside. He could be a day 2 guy. And then Fant's profile's a little more replaceable to our build, I think. But I like Fant. I like the call. He's never been able to run big routes. Both of the tight ends behind him signed elsewhere this offseason. Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson are gone. The tricky thing is he's got 3 good receivers ahead of him. He doesn't really have that type of depth chart at receiver where he could be like the number 2 target earner. But the routes could he probably runs a career high in routes this year, which is he still had some decent peripherals in his career. Like, he's not a bad player probably. He's just never been in an offense where he's gotten to run 500 routes at tight end. New coordinator, new situation. Maybe he gets that opportunity this year.
Yeah, you want to do Fant here, and then we could do a couple more bullets late. Someone says Sanders is a blocker. I think some of Pat's work has shown that this shouldn't be as much of a pejorative as it sounds. Like, to me, a blocker means they're going to stay on the field. They're going to be in there at the jumbo packages near the goal line. Also, the draft capital should be there for Ja'Tavion Sanders. It looks like he's going to be an early day 2 pick. Like, to me, get on the field as a rookie and you're big and athletic. Like, let everything else, work itself out.
Yeah, you got that right. Not to crap on the chat, but you said that way better than the chat's saying that as if that's a big negative, and it's not a pejorative. Like, yeah, I want my tight end to be a blocker. That's part of their job. That gets him on the field. Like, that's a good thing. He had 2 600-yard seasons in college, back-to-back years in a passing game that we've been saying with Xavier Worthy and Donnie Mitchell, their quarterback play was terrible, and also had, those other receivers to compete with. And 600-yard seasons for tight ends are good. I mean, that's he said he's not a 0 receiver by any means. So
in the NFL will tell us, one of these teams will tell us what they think about him, based on where is he taken, what does their current depth chart look like, when they take him. Like, the NFL kind of told us what they thought of Darnell Washington, when they selected him. Yes. Like, we got pretty excited about him after the combine, but the Steelers are like, hey, we already have Pat Freiermuth. Like, this is who we think Darnell Washington is. I think we'll learn a lot about where we stand with him after the draft.
And the chat's saying, like, the exclusively pass catching, the touchdown, I think. Wait, exclusively pass catching. I think he's trying to say tight ends got it. Seemed to bust more than they hit. So he's actually agreeing with us that the ones that are like the Kyle Pitts profile, or
the rocked up wide receiver,
Mike Gesicki or whatever. But I agree with that take for sure. The exclusively pass catching ones are a little bit trickier. I think Sanders is not just a blocker, is the way that I would put it. And to your point, like, it's not that much of a pejorative to be a good blocker. You want to be well-rounded. It's the ones that are the blocking only, the Darnell Washingtons, like you said. That's a different thing. Those are rarer than I think in fantasy we talk about them. We act like every good blocking tight end is a blocker only, and that's not the case. That's not the case for Sanders. That's not the case generally.
And I would be using the same filter and, skepticism on the Sanders pick as we are with some of these wide receivers, where it's like, we are not under the illusion that we just drafted this year Sam Laporta. Like, very different profiles, very different. But could Ja'Tavion Sanders be the late spike week guy? Give us a 15, 16, 17 couple touchdown game in the same way we've seen Jelani Woods do it. We saw Chigakwanko do that as a rookie. Like, that's what we're asking for when we take him as the tight end 2 here.
Exactly.
So we have been 2 more picks here at this turn. I think we're done at quarterback, unless like you did like a Daniel Jones value or any of these rookies. Otherwise,
I have a really hard time with quarterback at that range. I mean, I think Jones is probably, well, they might draft a quarterback too, but he's probably the starter. But a lot of when you look at that list of quarterbacks, the one that I'm most confident could start all 16 games, most confident as a relative comment is Gardner Minshew. Like I think he actually probably is the bridge quarterback all year.
Yeah.
Unless they go early. I just saw today that the Raiders might be into Penix in the first round, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, I don't think Russ starts all the games. I don't necessarily think Daniel Jones does. I don't think Darnold does. I think Howell starts some. It's tough.
So let's see here. I think we could do one more running back if we wanted, but let's just do a wide receiver because we know we're going to at least take. There's like some of these rookies, Anaya Smith,
sure.
Jamari Thrash. Do you have any quick takes on either of these guys?
No, let's just do whichever guy you like more.
Well, I did Jamari Thrash last one. Let's do Smith here. He's a bit of a scroll the F down guy. And then, I didn't do this one last time because out of like boredom, but I do think Khalif Raymond as like a final stack partner with Goff as just like hasn't been drafted, kind of the like cheaper version of Darnell Mooney. We could take another rookie, or if there's a running back you like.
I love that because Josh Reynolds is gone, right? Yeah, Josh Reynolds signed elsewhere. Yeah. And, Khalif Raymond's actually a really nice pick there. I like that.
Yeah, I've been doing him as this because it's like a triple whammy, right? Where you get the correlation with Goff, and then he wasn't drafted really until the Reynolds trade happened. So he's not going to have the ownership that a lot of these other late round picks have. And just gives us now we have the double stack with both Goff and Cousins, which is nice.
Right. The stack element is super nice. He's the way they use him, he's going to have some, because they do some interesting stuff with him around the line of scrimmage and stuff too. Like he's going to have some spike games at times. So yeah, he's a good stack guy.
I think the counter too, and I could certainly see Detroit drafting another, receiver. Like who knows what happens with Jamison Williams? Like they are a little thin after letting Reynolds go. So maybe they draft one of these guys. But Raymond has been good when he's been on the field. This is the final team, Ben. 2-5-10-3. Really liked how this one shook out, and I didn't feel like we were put in too many gross spots other than maybe tight end 2 and 3. But quarterback Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, got our 5 running backs. Joe Mixon, Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Brooks, Zach Charbonnet. Feel like we threaded that needle of like 0 RB, but through the mid rounds, and that we're not taking on a ton of risk. Like we know what these guys are going to be. Wide receivers, AJ Brown, Drake London, Tank Dell, Amari Cooper, Darnell Mooney, then a string of rookies, Roman Wilson, Javon Baker, Jermaine Burton, as the chat would say, Anis Smith, and then Khalif Raymond, and then 3 tight ends, Sam Laporta, Jatavian, Don't Call Me a Blocker, Sanders, and Noah Fant. I like how this one shook out.
Yeah, I like the way you put it too, where we didn't get put in a lot of tough spots. It was always pretty clear where we wanted to go. I like what you said about the running backs. I mean, I feel really comfortable with that group, considering we only took, our first running back goes at pick 62. We only took one before pick 80, right? And yet we get both Mixon and Swift. I feel really comfortable with their roles because they got these contracts this offseason and on new offenses. We know what Mostert is. I mean, even if they add another back, they're going to use him. They like him. As long as he's healthy, he's going to play. Brooks is a late season hammer, right? We know that he's going to go reasonably high in the draft and is probably the best profile if he wasn't coming off an ACL. Charbonnet is going to get used a decent amount. I mean, that's a good running back room for the capital we had to spend on it. It allowed us to get really strong at the top of our receiver group, which allowed us to build out that like stars and scrubs kind of concept at receiver that I think makes a ton of sense with the scrubs being a lot of rookies. And we have that really nice 10 receiver build that's really top heavy. To your point, the only concern I have is tight end 2, and we almost thread that needle too. If we could do one thing different, I would take Mayer at that turn where he wound up going on the first pick. Call. And we could have been a little more comfortable with our tight end 2. But still, I mean, we took the first tight end off the board. I mean, if you're gonna really punt tight end 2, you got to treat Laporta. And we stacked him with Goff. I mean, you got to treat Laporta like he's the star, and that's what we did.
And I think that's such A good point too. And this was a talking point that's been hammered over the years, the drafting, like you're right. But I think it's still sometimes easy to get lost in the sauce of like comfy constructions and what makes you feel good. But it's like when you draft, as much as we're excited about these elite tight ends, the whole thesis is the same as the legendary upside thesis, right? Like you need that legendary season for that pick to pay off. We know there's landmines. Not all of these tight ends are going to give us a legendary season. These are just the ones that have the chance to do that. When we take Laporta at 38, we need him to be the top 1 or top 2 tight end in a big way again.
Exactly. I mean, it wouldn't feel so hard to envision that. I don't think if you envisioned that was Travis Kelce or Travis Kelce of last year, this draft wouldn't be an issue. You'd be like, oh yeah, we have Travis Kelce, the tight end 1 at the top of our 3 tight end build. We took a couple late flyers. I mean, that's what we're saying Laporta is, and he can definitely be that.
Gretch, I highly recommend everyone check out the Stealing Signals Substack. I'll drop the link to that in the description. You have a bunch of posts out on some early underdog thoughts. And for you and me, there's going to be no regular ship chasing this week. Pat is obviously out, but Gretch and I are going to hop on to ADP chasing on Wednesday with Davis Maddock and Sam Sherman. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be Wednesday at noon on the Ship Chasing channel. But let the people know what else you got going around the fantasy streets right now.
That's pretty much it. The newsletter, Stealing Bananas as always. Sean and I have recorded some good episodes lately, switched up our format a little bit where we're doing these like super long pods and then releasing some of them as like shorter clips of individual topics. So last week, I think our clips were on, or they're like 20-minute or 30-minute conversations on like the Texans, on the Bears. So talking through the Diggs trade, talking through the Keenan Allen trade and how those offenses are going to look. But yeah, just kind of getting some of these drafts in, looking forward to the NFL draft we got coming up. We're going to probably have we haven't really talked about this yet, Pete, but we're going to probably have our Ship Chasing live stream. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. That's not far off.
Dude, I talked about that in the first stream and I was just getting so jacked up because I feel, well, one, it's always a blast, but I feel like this year is set up for probably one of the most fun first rounds in recent memory. It's like we're going to have so many skill position players in the top 15 picks, probably some fun maneuvering. And then we're going to have like a lull, maybe 5 or 6 picks. And then we're going to get into all these rookies coming off the board, wide receivers at the back end. It's just going to be so fun.
And there's a lot of uncertainty about who might go where and all that. It's not super set in stone or anything. We have some expectations in the top 10, but I think the rest of it wouldn't surprise me if we see, like I talked about Brian Thomas earlier on the show, but it wouldn't surprise me if Brian Thomas actually slides a little bit. I think people are really confident he's going to go higher. The NFL evaluators seem to really like him, but if you were going to have a faller, like he could be the profile that could fall. I think you could make that case. It'll be interesting. We're going to be reacting to all of that. Pete, I'm going to try to stay a little bit more sober this year. Last year, I got pretty hammered.
Appreciate you guys hanging out this morning. Be sure to subscribe to the Deposit Kingdom channel as well. I mentioned that earlier. If you guys missed the video late last week, the 12 most controversial players in fantasy, I think you'll enjoy it, comparing different ranking sets and potentially finding undervalued, overvalued players, and then just some really fun sound bites. Finding some spots where Sean is just way above market, or Pat and them are way below market. It was an interesting exercise. So if you enjoy these drafting streams, you'll like it. Make sure you're subscribed over there. I just dropped Ben's Substack link in the chat, bengretch.substack.com. You guys need to be subscribed there for all of his thoughts as we enter full drafting season. I'm not sure what the plan is going to be for next Monday. Who knows if there'll be a contest up. I kind of fully expect the big board to be full by then. Maybe the little board will still be open. We'll figure it out. We'll have a stream regardless, maybe a portfolio review of what ended up with my big board entries. But until then, appreciate all of you guys. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you around.